Black people are fucking obsessed with race. You ever notice that? Of course you have. It's impossible not to notice that. I was at this big marketplace one time, and there was this black guy just yelling at this poor little Asian girl behind the counter, and he was playing the race card hardcore. He was doing the, why can't you treat me the same as these other people? That's all I ask. All because she was too slow getting him his fucking pork chops. Yeah, she dragged ass on those pork chops. I mean, not literally. That'd have been sexy? Because, you know, it was because he's a brother, though, you know? She's not just slow at her job. It's because he's black that she's being slow. If he was white, ooh, he'd be getting them pork chops so damn fast, you know? I'm like, geez, fucker, this is the meat counter, not Roots. This isn't the time for this, I just want to be treated like everybody else speech. You're buying meat. You're not a fucking civil rights icon. No one's going to pass by the scene and be like, holy shit, it's the next Rosa Parks, everybody, quick. Someone put this man on a fucking stamp. Can we have a national holiday for this man? Can we close down the post office and the bank for a day to remember this man's struggle against the tyranny of the pork chops being put in the bag too slow? I'm done with black people whining about racism at every turn, especially these sniveling little twats who are enrolled at Ivy League schools who are still talking about their struggle, uhuru, and their oppression, and how we as a culture just need to put an end to the very concept of whiteness. I mean, excuse me, you go to an Ivy League school, you don't get to whine about fucking oppression anymore. Like, not even a little. I mean, you can, I guess, but you look like a fucking retard. I mean, this fucking kid here is so brainwashed into the cult of black pseudo-oppression that he would have no problem looking into the eyes of a white homeless person and saying, you've got white privilege. We need to dismantle the power structure that unfairly advantages you over me. And the homeless guy would just be like, you got $1? You know, not until I get my reparations. Because black people, yeah, listen up here about this reparations shit. For your own sanity, stop asking for reparations. Because you know why? It's never gonna fucking happen. No one but you thinks you deserve money because your great-great-great-grandpappy was a fucking slave. Because he's long dead. Guess what? His troubles are over. And the people who enslaved him, they're long dead too. And I refuse to hold myself accountable for their crimes. And your argument that I, as a white person, continue to benefit from slavery 200 years ago, and you, as a black person, continue to suffer from slavery 200 years ago, guess what? That argument is bullshit. Because first of all, if your ancestors weren't brought here as slaves, you'd probably still be in Africa, where in most places, life sucks significantly more than it does here in the US. A lot of Africans aren't bitching about white privilege. They're worried about finding clean drinking water or substantive food. They don't get to berate the little Asian lady at the meat counter for bagging their pork chops too fucking slow, okay? That's your American privilege. And you can thank slavery for that. Just as most white people can thank indentured servitude for their being here, because very few white people even owned slaves. Most were little more than slaves themselves. They'd come to America as indentured servants with the deal that if you work for 7 years as a rich man's slave, when your time is done, you get some money and a little tiny parcel of land to call your own. Well, you know what? Since rich people didn't want to give anyone their precious fucking money or their precious fucking land, many of them did their best to work their indentured servants to death. So the past is full of brutality, and it wasn't all along racial lines. Much of it was along class lines, or along gender lines, or along religious lines. People have always been really good at dividing themselves up into groups and then fucking with each other in profoundly horrible ways. And we've gotten a little less violent lately, a little less evil, a little less cruel and horrible, but guess what? Those divisions, they still exist. Like, there's plenty of white people in this country who hate immigrants and hate non-white cultures and believe that Miscegenation is white genocide. Well, sorry, David Duke, but if this bitch is, if fucking this bitch here is like a form of genocide, then spank my ass and call me Hitler, because I value that big black ass more than I value the white race any fucking day of the week. Do you think I give a shit about a future in which no one's skin is this particular shade? Because guess what? I fucking don't. I don't care if no one is white or everyone's white. I don't care if everyone's fucking purple. No one's race concerns me because it's a superficial trait and it's not even a character trait. If I'm in a room and there's this guy and there's this guy, who am I more likely to want to hang out with? This guy, because obviously he's a fucking edgelord piece of shit like me. I can probably tell him some dead baby jokes and shit and make him laugh. This guy I got nothing in common with. I don't give a shit that we're the same color. We're not even vaguely similar inside. People who identify with their race, the reality is that they're just empty fucking people. Because how little do you have to have going on in your fucking life that your skin color is what you choose to be proud of? I'm black, y'all. Black lives matter. Black power. Yeah, that's good. Here's a fucking cyanide capsule and some 7-Up to wash it down. You know what to do. Please end your farce of a fucking existence so we can move past you. White pride worldwide. White power. Stop white genocide. Okay, well, how about this for an idea? How about we throw you screaming from a helicopter into the fucking waiting maw of an active volcano? Would that be fun? I know that the volcanoes, they usually like nubile young virgins, but me and the villagers, we had a conference and we decided we'd rather throw you in and keep the virgins for ourselves. Fuck what the volcano wants. Fucking white racist, they're an acquired taste, but I'm sure it'll get used to you. And you can disagree with me if you want, but you can't call me racist because my standards are 100% consistent. If you take pride in your race, you're a useless fucking zit on the ass of humanity and you should be popped. Same goes for your precious fucking nationality and your gender and your sexual orientation, by the way. I'm a guy and I like dick and I'm proud. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not a fucking accomplishment. Now, if you take a 12-inch dick up your ass, I can see the pride there. That's a fucking accomplishment. Not everyone can do that. But just the very act of liking dick is nothing. That's like being proud of liking steak. Who gives a fuck? Now, if you eat a 64-ounce steak in one sitting, then you've actually done something. You've accomplished a thing. And many people might not care or think it's a stupid thing, but at least it's not something that just anyone could do with ease at a moment's notice. Do you know what I'm proud of? I'm proud that if I sit down in front of a computer and devote myself to writing, I can crank out a 2,000-word script like it's nothing. I'm proud that when I perform those scripts in front of you guys, more often than not, people like it. I'm proud that I can make a living doing that. I'm proud that I have a sweet girlfriend that I can make happy. Well, sometimes anyway. I'm proud of being part of a reasonably successful podcast with the Drunken Peasants. I'm proud of the things that I've actually done. Now, whether other people validate my pride or not is irrelevant. The fact is that I've done those things through my own efforts, and that's where pride should come from. It should come from effort. There's no pride for me in my skin being white. I was born this way. I had no choice. I had no say. There was no test of worthiness before I was bestowed with white skin. My mom and dad were white, and they fucked, and their kid was white. So fucking what? And people say to me when I make this argument, well, what about cultural pride? You know, what about pride in where you came from? What about pride in your fucking pedigree? Like I'm supposed to get all misty-eyed thinking about the accomplishments of the white race. We invented wax paper. So beautiful. Ha! No, Thomas Edison invented it. Or knowing what a piece of shit he was, he probably stole it from some poor sap. But whoever invented wax paper, it wasn't me. I wasn't there. But let's say I did decide to take pride in that. Let's say I looked at the long history of what the white race had done and took it as my own and said, yeah, I'm part of this. Well, in that case, then I probably should pay reparations to black people, right? Because if I'm gonna own the accomplishments, I also have to own the fucking atrocities. But you know what? I don't want either. I want to be an individual with my own drives and convictions and principles, not just a cultural unit, not just a series of superficial identity categorizations. I'm white, I'm male, I'm bisexual. That doesn't tell you nearly as much about me as the movies I like, or the opinions I hold, or the way I talk, or the way I dress, or the way I spend my time. But black people, by and large, seem far more willing to reduce themselves to a superficial identity than white people do. Now, there's plenty of white racists, to be sure, but in the black community, racism seems like it's more the norm. They think that being black really means something. And anyone who tries to convince them of the simple truth that it's actually quite meaningless to be black is viewed as a racist, or else drunk on their own white privilege. Oh, my privilege. Privilege. Oh, I'm so fucking privileged. Well, you're free to care about your race if you want to, but I don't. I personally don't. And I've never signed a document saying that I have any loyalty to my race, nor did I ever sign one stating that I'm obligated to care about yours, because I don't. I don't care that I'm white. I don't care that you're black or Indian or Chinese or whatever. I don't give a shit. And I think that if you do, you're a ridiculous piece of shit whose opinion is fucking garbage. Now, I'll address one more argument today before I go. And this is an argument you mainly hear from white supremacists about the glory of the white race. They point to the innovations of white people and use that as evidence of our inherent greatness. So first of all, most of the white people who bring this shit up are not impressive people. It's not, for the most part, the scientists and the engineers and the artists and the writers and the filmmakers and people who actually have skill sets who bring up this point. It's the schlubs and the losers who are spinning their fucking wheels in the mud. It's the people who have nothing to take pride in, so they take pride in the accomplishments of everyone who happens to share their skin color. Pathetic. Second of all, the agricultural revolution, the revolution that really started humanity towards escaping 200,000 years of hunter-gatherer tribes, that happened 12,000 years ago, when Europeans actually had darker skin and darker eyes and way more Neanderthal DNA than they do now. When humanity began its ascent from tribal wanderers to technological society, no one was white. In fact, many scientists think that vitamin D deficiency from the way agriculture changed our diets, coupled with the higher latitude of Europe, is what changed our skin white to begin with. So when you look at your white skin and you feel this big old surge of dumbass pride, you're really taking pride in vitamin D deficiency and less sunlight exposure. This human race that we're all part of is 200,000 years old, or maybe a little more. And we figured out industry about 250 years ago. We figured out computers less than 100 years ago. So let's not get too full of ourselves, okay? Because either as a species or as any particular race, for most of history, we were all just hunter-gatherers who lived in tribal societies where you were lucky to stay fed long enough to pass your genes down to the next generation. And a few brilliant people were smart enough to discover ways to improve the collective lives of all of humanity, but their accomplishments belong to them and them alone. We benefit from what they did, but we don't get to take credit for it. And if many of those who changed the world for the better were white, that doesn't say anything about you as a white person, or me as a white person. That doesn't make you every bit as capable as they were. Just because the guys who invented the airplane were white doesn't mean your dumbass understands aeroscience. And just because the first successful open heart surgeon was black doesn't mean all black people are medical geniuses. And even the ones who are can still be retarded in other areas. I'm looking at you, Ben Carson. But even if there's something to the idea that one race is in some way superior to another on average, like black people have better rhythm or white people are more brainy. That doesn't tell us anything about individuals. Clearly, there are white people with great rhythm and black people who are brilliant. There are tons of stereotypes that exist in this world. And maybe they exist for a reason, but there's also tons of people who blow those stereotypes to fucking pieces. The only sensible way to appraise a person is to know them as a person, as an individual. You don't know shit about a person based on their race, nor for that matter, their sex, or their orientation, or their gender identity, or whatever. That's all superficial. What really matters is individual merit. So I'm sick of black pride and white pride and any other sort of meaningless pride. If you want to take pride in something, then you'd better actually accomplish something. And if you can't do that, then no identity can save you from how bereft of worth you well and truly are. I'm TJ Kirk, spitting truth in your face like a fucking dragon spits fire. Subscribe to my channel, share this video, buy my awesome skull shirt. If you take a picture of yourself in it and send it to me, I'll feature it on my channel. And I guess that's about it. Peace the fuck out. Fucking